failure for me tonight. Hi everybody, I'm Tegan and Sara's mom. I brought notes because I'm old and I forget a lot. I thought I would actually start with a housekeeping item. I was actually tricked into doing this, and I really want to put it out there for you so you have a context about why I maybe won't do as well as perhaps other moderators. Sara called me at 7 in the morning, and I don't know about any of you, but 7 in the morning in my life means somebody has died or somebody's really sick. And so when I hear her voice and she starts to tell me about how her and Tegan think I should do this like moderator thing and I'll be so great and I worked with teens, and I start to, think, well, I'm also just waking up because I've been sound asleep, and I start to give her all of the reasons why I shouldn't do it. I'm old, I'm forgetful, I've never moderated any conversation between the two of them ever in 44 years. Why would they want me to do that now? And perhaps they should get somebody else. And then Sara says, well, actually we did, and they backed out. And so I just felt really sorry for her. I was just like, oh my God, I have to do it now. So here I am. And the other thing I want to say too is that when your kids invite you to get on stage and they've written books about you in movies or television shows, and there's been a thing about you in the stratosphere and you haven't contributed to it, if they say you get to go on stage and talk about them, I'm like, you do the power move and you get on stage and you do it. So here I am. I've been instructed by Tegan. And I'm just going to show you the instructions about telling. They said I should tell you something about me, so I brought the emails that she sent me. Some of them more than once. I'm not sure if she thought I wasn't able to read. I'm not quite sure. Nonetheless, those were my instructions. So. For those of you who might not know, I am a clinical social worker, and I retired last year from private practice. I had a lot of time on my hands, sort of, when I was working. Now I don't have any time on my hands anymore. But when I worked in schools with mostly teenagers. So most of my life was with either public schools, specialized therapeutic settings, and some private schools here in Vancouver. And I would say that the most favorite people that I have ever worked with are teenage girls. So my favorite stage of development, maybe other than Sid, who's 2, and probably I'll like every stage of development of his, because he's so cute. Before we start our conversation about their new book, Crush, I thought I would give you guys some context about who Tegan and Sara were in middle school. And, but I should probably acknowledge that I was also a terror, and my mother described me as being idyllic and turning into a monster by the time I was 11. She did send me away to private school, boarding school, where I was taught by nuns, and I'm sure she was hoping they would modify my behavior. This church is really giving me some stress. When I went away to school and finally landed in Calgary, I started to get my poop together. But when she describes me as a monster, I really feel like it's fair to say that she probably embellishes and exaggerates the story, much like those two who have talked about me constantly and embellished stories about me. When the girls hit 8th grade, the climate definitely changed in our house. Unlike my mother's description of my character, both my girls were undeniably charismatic and charming. They did save their charm for me until they were making arguments for more freedom or to be allowed to go to raves. And that's where the gloves came off. I do remember a particularly difficult fight we had in the mid-90s in my Aerostar van where I pulled off on the side of the road and leaned over the passenger side, oops, sorry guys, leaned over the passenger side of the door where Sarah was sitting and opened it, and then placed my legs on her and tried to shove her out. If the car would have been moving, I would not have been opposed to shoving her out of the car, even then. We had gotten to the place of a screaming stalemate, and I drove home and I called my mother crying and said how horrible they were and what terrible kids they were and how horrible they were being to me. And I wanted to apologize to her for everything that I had ever done to her. And she said, can you be more specific about what it is that you're apologizing for? And of course, I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for, and said as much as she said how disappointed she was in the apology, hoping it would be better when it came. But in all honesty, Tegan and Sara were such awesome kids. They were loving and thoughtful and really kind human beings, albeit they were also liars and schemers. They were bright and engaging, opinionated, outspoken and very funny. They were wonderful storytellers, and generally really full of empathy for everybody except me. They cared deeply for their friends and family. They loved their grandmother and would have done anything for her. They always understood their privilege and good fortune. They volunteered in high school on a teen drug line, go figure. If you haven't read high school, generally, or you should probably check that out. Our house was always filled with their friends, some of the best humans I know who still populate my life and their life, now with their own kids, and hopefully I'll live long enough to see them all tortured by them. Middle school, or in Alberta, we call it junior high, is a really tough place. It's a time for everybody, in everybody's life, that is rife with fluctuating emotions, intense and dramatic relationships with friends. Our identity is forming right there in the moment. We become engaged in a world that our parents don't know about and don't live in with us, and we're figuring out who we are and what we want. So add this to the list of all the to-dos from schools and universities who want a resume by the time you're in grade 12, and add in being identical twin and queer kids in the 90s, where there were very few role models for my kids to look up to. Then mix in the intensity of those first crushes, and it's a wonder any of us survive. And so right now, standing here so many decades away from the middle school experiences I had and the ones the girls had, I have got to say that I'm so proud of them and proud of me. I know that they have accomplished so much in their lives, but it's one simple thing that they do that makes me the most proud. They give queer kids hope. I have seen and heard so many stories from their fans about how their transparency on stage and in their writing, and how their words and emotions they share in music and in their books really saved their lives. So tonight, as we celebrate their new book, Crush, a book I know will be another vehicle for their words and their reflections about their life that will serve to inspire their readers, can you please welcome Tegan and Sara.
Excellent job. I think we could just call it a night. It's going to be downhill from here, I think. I forgot to switch the slide. I was so mesmerized by what you were saying. Yeah, it was excellent. It's not easy to get up on stage, or in this case, in a church on the floor in front of a couple hundred people. So a huge round of applause for our mom, Sonia.
about reading Crush. I read it last week front to back. There were so many parts of your life I see reflected in it, and teenage Tegan and Sara are so sweet and vulnerable. I love how Tillie Walden, your partner and the book illustrator, brings us to your feelings with these simple illustrations of both of you that just punch you in the gut. I have always seen this sweetness and vulnerability in you guys, and she draws you in such a precise way that I think she captures you perfectly. I think the parts of Crush that I love the most are the ones drawn in red and blue. I think you call them interstitials. Interstitials. It's where I see the emotional connection and relationship between the two of you really on display. I'm curious about how you guys were able to get her to work with you, and do you think she just gets you because she's a twin?
Yeah, it was the publisher that suggested her, and right away we knew that she was also a twin, and she's queer, and so it felt like the perfect person. Not that someone else couldn't have done it. It just felt like she was the perfect person to take this very vulnerable time in our life and draw it for us. But she's also just an award-winning, incredible cartoonist, so it felt really exciting to Sara and I. Like, that was basically like Mount Everest if we could get her to agree to do it. And she signed on, and then we didn't talk to her for almost 2 years because it was a deal we did when we did our memoir high school. So when we eventually started to write junior high, it had been this huge period of time had passed. And the publisher, I'm not saying that they blocked us from Tillie, but they weren't like, let's do a Zoom where you guys all hang out and get to know each other. They just were like, get writing. And so it was a weird thing where we just wrote and wrote and wrote, and then would send the pages to the publisher, and then when the script was done, which it took us maybe 5 or 6 months or something, they sent it to Tillie, and then Tillie drew samples of the characters for the book to sort of get our approval, and that was the only time we really interacted. And then she just drew the book, and when we saw the first edit, we both kind of like flipped out, and we emailed her, and we're like, how did you do this? And she was like, that was the longest script with the most detail I've ever been given. And so that's not to say that that's how she got to know us. I just think she's an empathetic, instinctive cartoonist who just is really good at what they do. But I think we gave her a lot of material, and I just felt like she got us, and I feel like the interstitials were so beautiful. Like, her one complaint was that she wanted to know how we felt, and she didn't really necessarily always know. We weren't necessarily saying in the book how we felt, which I think is very us. Like, we were telling you absolutely everything else except for how we were feeling, and she created these beautiful interstitials, and it felt like that's when I was like, I think she really does know us. Like, she really gets it, and she's just such a special human being. Was that a question? I can't even remember.
Yeah. I'm also curious about the interstitials. Are they like you're talking to each other, but in your sleep, or like in some kind of space? Like, how's it happening?
I'm such a stoner. I don't know if it's actual literal conversation. I think that it's supposed to, part of writing the script, we were told like to really include a lot of detail, and we had just finished the manuscript for high school where it's almost the opposite, like, show, don't tell kind of thing. And so this was almost the opposite. It was like, make sure you include everything you want Tillie to know so she can draw it. And I think we left out feelings because that felt like, how do you write that in the script? I think we actually were better at that in the second book, because we would actually say like, Sarah's feeling this way or Tegan's feeling this way. But she just sort of read between the lines, and she created these moments, I think, as a way to kind of dive into our interior emotions. And I don't think it's literal, like we're not like twin telepathy or anything, we're not sleeping. I think it's just supposed to, it's kind of, you know what it is? It's sort of the narrator in some ways. It's somebody who sort of can sort of like look over the story and tell you something a little more than what the actual story is telling you.
Well, as I said in my opening comments, your words and the emotion they evoke are so central to your books and your music. I feel like this is the thread that binds them to you and who you are as writers. How does that thread bind them to each other, the three books?
Well, I don't know if this is exactly an answer to that, but this has come up a little bit since we started working on these types of projects, but this sort of like idea that we're mythologizing ourselves, like that we are trying to take our work right now, at least in the books and the TV show, and we are trying to sort of like recast our own origin story and our identity in our own words, because so much of our music is about relationships or about feelings or things that like muses or whatever it is, but the kind of like story of our band is always filtered through the media. And I think there's something interesting about going back and sort of like rewriting our early history in our own voice, because if you go back and you look at press from our early days, I mean, that is not what I want people to look at exclusively when we're gone off this earth, if anyone is still looking for us. But oh my God, I know, but I just felt like it's awful, I mean, at least I think it's kind of awful. And so I think there is just something sort of beautiful about just finally getting to tell our story, so that if anyone is more interested than just looking at a headline or an article or some pull quotes, like here's our story. It doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily hard-hitting or critical or in the way that maybe some people want when they read a biography, but it is how we felt. And it's I think these books are all the same in that we are answering or trying to answer a series of questions that people like you ask us. When did you start? How did you know you were gay? How did you know you could sing together? How did you write your first song? What did it feel like to write your first song? What did it feel like to know that you were gay and know that your sister might be gay too? Like these are literally, all these themes are sort of like things that we've been thinking about and trying to talk about, I guess, to some degree, but to get to sit down and really sort of put them into a narrative form, I mean, it's really great. I hope it's not too gratuitous. We have to stop. We won't do this anymore, I don't think. I think we'll do something else now. Don't believe her. The college years, but it's just all fiction. We didn't go to college.
In Crush and in junior high, in your writing of them, the stories are somewhat fictionalized, and they seem to be blended with some of your real life experiences in middle and high school. Was there a difference in your process between writing Crush and junior high with writing your memoir in high school?
Yes, with high school we were writing a memoir, so we were being as factual and honest as possible. And with memoir, it's not an autobiography, it's not a historical record. It's like, we always joke, like, memoir is memoir, so it's okay if it's from my perspective. You can disagree with me, as you did about a lot of what we wrote in high school. But it's a memoir, so it's okay. But I think junior high and Crush would be more categorized as autofiction, so it's pulled very much from our real life, but it's fictionalized to a point where, like, all the characters are different. And specifically with Crush, we pull major storylines from our real life, but once we were adults, and we modernized them and we put them into a teenage perspective. So and I think it was the publisher who asked us to do junior high and Crush in that way. But I think for Sarah and I, it was really exciting to, one, get to recontextualize and excavate some of those huge emotional moments in our early life from an adult perspective. And it was also really exciting just to play with our imagination and write fiction, because I do think we are going to make a foray into fiction. So,
Well, you have had quite a bit of experience creating fiction.
Yeah, it turns out it's not that hard. It's just a lot just like a lot of the lies we told in high school. But we weren't very good at telling those lies, because you busted us all the time. I mean, I think that's one of the things that is definitely missing from junior.
I don't actually agree with that, because I did read your memoir. And there were a lot of things in there that I didn't bust you for.
No, we were excellent. I was very deceitful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a thick package there. Let's stay on track.
Okay. When I read your books, I'm reminded of some of the experiences we had in the 90s. I have such a strong somatic connection to you. I realize, although that I was away from you a lot with a full-time job and school, that I always felt like I really was aware of what was going on with you and ultimately what you were both doing. But when I see it through the lens of your books, I recognize that I missed a great deal. Did it feel that way to you as teens, and how do you feel now that you look back at our lives during that period from this distance?
Careful, that's a minefield.
Well, let me just start by saying that in the 1980s and 1990s, you were probably more present in our life than the average parent, I think, because you were kind of hanging around. And, you know, in ways where we were like for example, we might be like alone having a sleepover and you were at work, and then maybe you'd kind of roll in around like 11 or 12 at night, you know, when you were done your shift. And we would be up and we would hang with you. Like we would, that's why it's in the book, it's truthful. You guys were around. You guys were around, I think so. I mean, I will say this, when I think about have my son now growing up and not wanting to be around me, it makes me feel so upset. And so I think, you know, I always felt excited to be around you guys. I feel like we were always at Grandma and Grandpa's. We were always hanging out with, going for rides in Bruce's sports car, our stepdad. You know, like, I remember liking you guys and wanting to be around you, and you made hanging out with you still to this day, like I think we socialize with you and we hang out with you. So I didn't feel like you were absent, but I do think that there, you know, in retrospect, of course I look back on like, what did it feel like to get up in the morning and go to like a day home or get dropped off at somebody's house to watch us or whatever, like you not being there after school. You know, my biggest fantasy when I was a kid was that I just wanted to go home for lunch. You know, like I didn't want to go to the day home and watch Tegan gag back like cream of mushroom soup and, you know, cold pierogies or whatever I used to eat. But I'm just like, of course, when I was a kid, my biggest dream was just that we would get to be around you more and be at home more. And but I also, you know, my memory was that I was admiring of you guys. You were busy and you were cool and you were always interested in what we were interested in, and you made available to us the things, you know, that we were curious about. And you always, I think that for, you know, what you lacked in like time, meaning like I don't remember you like you know, my wife is sitting in the front row right here, and like I know that her mom used to like do homework with her and like do these things, and I'm like, okay, like I have like 2 memories of homework being done with me, and it was like one time I had spent all this time
at midnight,
and hysterically crying, and I had like colored the Baffin Islands wrong with, and it was like I ruined my Canadian map, and I was hysterical, and my mom got out a ruler and was like, what if you just draw lines and then you create a legend? And it's like the Baffin Islands are different color than the other thing, but then they just have lines through it. So that's how you know they're all connected. And like, you know, it was a little chaotic, but it was, you know, like, I guess like
just called my parenting chaotic.
You were chaotic. I was a little chaotic, but I think
I agree with that.
you had a lot of faith in us. But you know, one of the things that I've been so excited to see in some of the reviews of, especially Crush, the second book, is it was important that we craft your role and really the parents' role, like, so, you know, you and our stepdad and our dad and his girlfriend in the book, the 4 of you really collectively co-parent, and you do this really seamlessly, and that's not a fiction. You did that in real life. We always felt like we had all of our parents and their new partners to support us, and that there wasn't tension for the most part. And I also think that you guys were the first people who, while you were incredibly encouraging of our interests and our, you know, pursuit of music, you were the first people to say, hey, whoa, pump the brakes. You don't have to become, like, you don't have to like drop out of high school and say yes to all of these, you know, opportunities that are sort of arriving because of, you know, winning a music contest. Like, you should still follow this path. You should still turn 18 so that you can sign your own contracts. You should still finish high school with decent grades, so if this doesn't work out, you have other options.
That didn't really work out, hey, the decent grades.
I mean, my grades were fine, Mom. I could have got it. It's not, do I have to get my transcripts out? Like, no, but I think there was, my math grade, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, I think we're time for a new question.
Okay, let me just finish. No, just wait, let me just finish. It was so important to me that we write in Crush how integral of a role you played, not in just pushing us. You encouraged us, but you were also one of the first people to say, hey, I'm gonna protect you from, you know, thinking that you have to say yes to everything. Like you will still be talented in 6 months. You will still be good if this takes you 2 years. You will still, you will still have all of these opportunities or
You
potential.
will have to pay rent though if you don't go to university.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's the truth.
But I think that we see so many of these kind of stories where
$250. I mean, it's a lot. It was 1997.
anyways, I think a lot of parents, they sort of push their kids beyond what is, you know, maybe responsible when they see like, oh my God, my kid loves this thing and they're so talented and I really want them to pursue this and I'll make their dreams come true.
Yeah.
You were the first one to say like, you believed in us. Like I never doubted that you believed in us, but you were also like, oh, you're absolutely still going to that tutor and you were finishing high school and you were getting your math above 60%. Like you were really clear that talent and, you know, and a clear-eyed, you know, view of the future did not mean that I was going to like flunk out of high school.
I really am enjoying this reframe because that's not how I felt.
Well, that's not quite how it felt for me either, but I do want to be a little bit diplomatic.
All right, moving on.
We got there. I think that's roughly what happened.
Okay,
and then,
there's
you know,
going to be
yeah.
more room to fill in the blanks here. Okay. I spent many years of your childhood and adolescence in school getting my social work degrees. I remember us doing homework together when you were in elementary school and you were making me tea and scones when I studied.
Your homework, yeah.
Yes. Well, I was doing homework. I remember you guys making me tea and scones.
Yes.
You were like 7.
Yeah.
And then at some point you started complaining that I hadn't done your laundry. I think you were 9 or 10 and I got a stool out and taught you how to do your own laundry. I was busy studying for exams and these seemed like really normal things to me, not out of the ordinary, just the way things had to be. How do you think me being a student impacted your life? Do you think these early lessons in independence contributed to building both your
This feels
capacity?
leading and okay, I got this one. I'm sorry.
Do you think that these early lessons in independence contributed to building your capacity and the tenacity to build a career in the creative arts, and ultimately the resiliency you have fostered to keep it going for 26 years?
This feels like a deposition.
Asking for a friend.
I'm uncomfortable. Okay. The short answer is 100%. I feel it is a point of pride and something that I spend a lot of time processing in therapy. That I feel unbelievable gratitude for how, not just you, but how Dad and Bruce and our grandparents, how many adults in our lives treated us, not like kids, but treated us with respect. Like treated us like we were capable and we were able to do things. And I feel like, yeah, incredible gratitude that we have those skills. I think we were, when I compare who I was at 17 to 17-year-olds now, or who I was at 25 to 25-year-olds now, it's like a Grand Canyon-sized difference. Like we were, I felt like an adult at 15, you know, and I know that every teenager says that, but I do feel like we were given an enormous amount of freedom and an enormous amount of responsibility, but we were also checked a lot. Like I do feel you guys constantly stepped up and really pushed us to be mature, and everything was, it was like if you want to come home at lunch, then you need to behave this way and we need to be able to trust you to be able to do that. And I think that was extremely helpful in terms of our career. I think that we have always taken everything we do very seriously. We felt entitled to nothing. We still feel that way. I think that's how we've led through our career. I still to this day don't feel entitled to anything. I'm only entitled to what I work for. And I think you guys taught us that. And watching you as a student, absolutely. Like I think we had an enormous amount of compassion and we feuded and dealt with a lot of our stuff out of sight because you were so busy and we knew you were working towards, you know, something that was like super, super important. That being said, I think that one of the things that was really exciting about, getting more into autofiction with Junior High and Crush was we were able to create, like, I think some of the things the parents do in the book are not things that we had. And I think that is part of being a writer, is writing what you wish you had, and I don't think that's bad. I think that I've experienced that through music and now through books, is the people who love us and know us sometimes have to go through a grieving process of hearing our perspective, not just to them, but to the world. And I acknowledge that can be really tough, but I do think these are aspirational books, like I don't think everything that happens in the books we had, but I still feel like what we did get was, we literally wouldn't be here. We would not have lived the life we did or had the career we had if we had been treated like
I remember you telling me, standing at the top of Center Street Hill, that me being a student made you realize how badly you did not want to go to school.
Yeah, it looks so hard.
Yeah.
I think now I have such an Americanized view of college, and sometimes I have this pang, like, oh, I missed out, like I really wish I'd gone to college, but it's so specifically because of TV and movies. I saw you go to college and I was like, too hard. It was so hard. It didn't look fun at all. You didn't even live in a dorm or do a cake stand or anything. You were like, you just studied all the time and then cried and then had a job to pay off your student loans. I was like, I don't want to do that.
That's pretty much it, yeah. Listen, we are moving into doing our section about reading some pieces of your book.
Well, first we're going to look at some photos,
Oh,
just to kind of tease ourselves a little bit and see if you remember anything specifically about any of these photos. But we've been talking a little bit about how funny these photos are, because in all of the photos, pretty much, Sarah's wearing things from Disney World, and I'm wearing Calgary sexual assault shirts. Like, I'm wearing like, there is no difference. Sarah's wearing a Take Back the Night shirt. Like, it's really interesting. Like, that's your influence there. You were a 90s feminist. You were, you were very, very active in our education about human rights and social justice. And this is just, I'm trying to think, like, what the teachers must have thought. Like, like that shirt that I'm wearing in the...
You have a no means no one as well.
Yeah.
I think it's proof though that, where a lot of teenagers start to really push their parents away, like we were really we really looked to you guys for, I hesitate to say style advice because I am wearing a weird Montreal Canadiens and an Epcot t-shirt in some of these photos, like in this pajama onesie thing with footsies or whatever. I don't know if that was like your style or fashion, but we really were influenced by you guys. We were influenced by the things that you were interested in, and then, I think it was a sort of reciprocal dynamic because we were interested in, your politics and sports teams, and you guys were like, what are you listening to? And then if you liked what we were listening to, we were all sharing the music in the house, and that felt like that was not happening in most of our friends' houses, so it was really special. And then I also just want to specifically ask you if you know anything about this picture with Tegan and I here. We're in the black and white and there's a bunch of boys. Do you know anything about that photograph? I know it's far away. Who can see this? Maybe like these children right here can see it because they have bionic eyesight at this age, but like everybody over the age of like 20 is like, what is that? What's going on in those pictures? Is that AI? No, it's me and Sarah, and then would you recognize any of those kids? I absolutely. In a yearbook, they sometimes make you sit with other people. You're part of a certain kind of club. Does that look familiar to you? Do you recognize that we were in a club with those boys? Do you know anything? That's all the twins at our junior high. Tegan dated 3 of 4 of those guys.
We have a discrepancy. I think I only dated 2 of them, but I also dated one of the sets of twins.
Which one did you date, Jeff or Brad? You can't remember, so I'm pretty sure it was both. And that's what junior high back then was wild. You went out for a couple weeks, you broke up with Jeff, and then you went out with Brad the next 2 weeks. And all you did was give each other like advent calendars or celebrate whatever Valentine's Day was coming up. And then
one of those boys for Valentine's Day was just, I mean, we only dated for a minute, but he was terrified of me, and I just remember him coming up into me in homeroom, and he just tossed like a marble bag with like 7 loonies in it on my desk. It was like Happy Valentine's Day, and I was like, I think I'm gay. I remember because if a girl had done that, I would have been like, thank you, queen, you know? He did it, and I was like, gross.
I wonder if he was the one that you wanted to buy boxes.
That was
from.
me, Sarah. That was me.
I was like, absolutely not.
There was those kiosks at the mall. Maybe they still have them. You know, they're sort of set up in the middle of the mall, and you can get items monogrammed, or you can get things on them. And I was like, why can't I get boxers with whatever? And I don't know. I was like, but I don't know. We were like 6 months away from wearing long johns with boxers shorts over top of them. Like that was the style. So I wasn't like, oh, these will be the perfect briefs for him to wear under his pants. I was like, we're all wearing boxer shorts on top of our clothes. Like that was the style. Oh God. But what were you doing in 8th grade? These are pictures of you in 8th grade. What were you doing?
I was in a boarding school.
Were you cool? Were you good? Were you bad?
Well, there were 80 of us, and you were either there because you were bad or you were really rich.
Which one were you?
Neither.
I don't know about that. I think you were bad, right?
Well, I got into a lot of trouble, and to be fair to myself, I was 8 years and 12 years younger than my 2 siblings, and I actually think my parents were just done with parenting, and so they were like, let's just send her to boarding school and we'll go travel, which is what they did.
And work it out, Mom, talk to your trauma.
And so I was in boarding school with 80 other girls, and I think there were about 10 of us in our grade, in each grade, 10 or 11 of us. And my first boyfriend, who I met driving
Lots
around
of
the
kids
periphery
here.
of the school, whose name was Joey Stevenuk, played guitar, and I was infatuated with him. And so we would sneak out at night out of the change rooms. We would lift up the windows and go out and meet the guys in Prelate, Saskatchewan at night, and then get back in the morning.
They would just read. Very into graphic novels. They'd read graphic novels and study together. I think you look very cool. I also thought, when I saw these photos, I was like, oh, we do look like you. People often, when they meet you, they're like, oh, do you look like your dad? It's rude. Okay. Hold on.
I actually think I was really cool.
Yeah. We are going to do a reading now. I've printed you a script and highlighted. You're going to play the narrator, you're going to play yourself, and you're going to play a character named Ramona. So the book just came out. I know many of you won't know who Ramona is, so I'll try not to ruin anything for everyone here, but in Crush, the book starts with Tegan and Sara's band Gunk enters a contest and they lose the contest. Sorry, it's a spoiler, but you're gonna have to live through that multiple times in the rest of the show, so I'm just telling you this now. So they lose the contest, but they end up getting a manager. And Crush is really, it's still about the Tegan and Sara universe from the first book, about their friends and the crushes they have in school, but you also see young Tegan and Sara sort of having to grapple with this newfound success and fame and figure out what to do with it. And pretty true to life, we wrote it as if Tegan is very excited by this, she's very amped up, she wants to be a rock star, and young Sara is more resistant, hesitant, wants to just be a young person, and so you see a lot of friction in the book while they're trying to figure that out. So we're about to read a scene from a chapter called, hold on, sorry, it's multitasking's hard. Behind the scenes, and it's basically set in our garage, which is where we used to rehearse in real life. So it's set in the garage. Young Tegan and Sara are rehearsing, and they are going to have an argument with each other about their manager Ramona putting pressure on them to create BTS. BTS, by the way, is behind the scenes, and that is something that our managers, record labels, and publishers, everybody wants every person who is selling a product to basically, no joke, people will email and be like, can you guys do a makeup tutorial? Why? Why would we do that? We're a band. Why would we do a makeup tutorial? So, but in this scene, we don't do that. We just want to go live, okay? So,
You're playing, you know, your characters, you're ready? Okay.
Yeah, you just basically read what I was supposed to read, but...
No, I know, but I had to set it up, because, you know, if you just read it, I mean, like, what the hell's going on?
All right, it's the garage studio. It's in the day, so light. It's a messy garage filled with instruments, cables, and a laptop. And Tegan and Sara are standing with their guitars, adjusting their equipment.
Is this tempo too fast?
I think it sounds cool.
Should we go live?
Not yet.
Let's film our rehearsal at least. Ramona says we need more BTS.
Come on, Sara.
My mouth is so dry.
BT what?
Behind the scenes. I don't want to be on camera. Ramona said we have to. By the way, I said this the other night, but this never happened in our actual junior high life. It happened like 2 weeks ago. And we have these fights like every single day in our real life. Okay. I don't want to be on camera.
Put that into your performance.
I don't want to be on camera. Ramona said we have to.
When?
She texted us.
Well, I don't read her texts.
No, but I do. And she said,
I don't care what she said.
she's our manager.
Come on, Sara.
Exactly, not our parent.
I'm tired of her telling us what to do all the time.
Well, now it's me telling you. Let's go live. One song. Roshini's coming over. I gotta prepare my room. Your room is perfect. Plus, I've already told some people.
Tegan strums her guitar.
Please.
Ugh, you're ridiculous.
Fine.
Tegan sets up her iPhone.
Okay, this angle's good. Mm-hmm. Ramona says Night Fever is a new character. Is Night Fever in the first book? No. Night Fever is like the famous teen star that we're obsessed with.
She's like our Billie Eilish.
She's our Billie Eilish.
Yeah.
Okay. Ramona says Night goes live every day.
Ramona says,
T&S go live.
Hi all, welcome. Actually, we should have said it. Hey guys, right? Hey guys, welcome. This is the first ever Tegan and Sara live stream. What's up, internet? This song is called Postcard.
Fans comment as Tegan and Sara play live. Skater Fez says, "Oh my God!" Vince says, "Gunk forever." Chloe for Brain says, let it go, Vince."
Sara?
it's supposed to be singing, I'm not singing.
Okay. Mr. Face, I feel replaced. It's a spoken word song. Mr. Face, I feel replaced. Put your postcard on my wall. Sing your name until you call. Thanks for watching, everyone. We're Tegan and Sara. Like below, subscribe below. Thanks for watching, everyone. We're Tegan and Sara, formerly Gunk. This next song is called Climb. Actually, I wrote a new song last night, and I'd like to debut. Oh my god, a world premiere! We'll play that after Climb.
That sounds dead, like Gunk. Out with the old, in with the new.
Sarah's joking.
I'm not.
Sarah,
Tegan?
the song is not dead, just play
I
it.
don't feel like playing it.
We're live!
I don't like
Sarah.
being told what to do.
It's a request.
I'm not taking requests.
Sarah steps away from the camera, putting down her guitar angrily.
Hope you enjoyed that show because it's our last one ever!
Tegan ends the live stream. Sonia, their mom, enters the garage looking at her phone, horrified. "Sara, Tegan, what are you two doing?"
Yeah, Tegan, what are you doing?
"I'm talking to both of you. That was very unprofessional."
Maybe I don't want to be professional.
We just got a manager.
So we can still just be a band and take our time.
"I agree, there is no rush."
But Mom, part of developing is rehearsing and doing social media all the time on 17 different platforms, even when you're 44. None of them are monetized, so it's just volunteer work. Just kidding, that's not in the book.
I want to write songs and play them for our friends, not make content.
We have to,
She doesn't have to, Tegan.
but I want to.
Well, I gotta get ready for Roshini.
Well, sorry for wanting to play music.
Mom!
Sonia unplugs the microphone. "Hold up, both of you. Let's take a beat." Tegan's cell phone starts to ring.
Uh-oh, Ramona's FaceTiming me.
Tegan runs to Sonia and gives her cell phone.
I'm not here.
I'm not here either.
Ramona's face appears on the screen, excited. "Hi, Ramona. Sonia, you ravishing beauty." "Oh, well, thank you." Sara and Tegan awkwardly stand by the door as Sonia tries to handle the conversation. I love the sibling conflict stuff. Great BTS. Sonia, it was incredibly childish. Ramona, are you kidding? It's better than TV. Put the girls on.
So you're not mad, Ramona?
No, but next time, let's see you resolve it. Show your friends that Tegan and Sara bond. Sonia, Ramona, I think the girls might need to go a little bit slower. It's starting to feel a bit intense. Ramona, flippantly. Good talk, have to run. Ciao. Narrator, oh that's me. Sara, please.
Where are you going, Sara?
Roshini, studying.
I'm not highlighted.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's your line. Sonia with her arm around Tegan.
Tegan, you have to remember the band is both of yours.
I know that.
Ramona is your manager, not your boss.
I know.
I'm the boss. Do you have homework?
Ramona says being creative is my homework.
Homework now.
Fine. End scene. So, this next section, Sarah and I pulled a few stories from Crush that are based on our real life, that we, like we said, we sort of fictionalized but also modernized and put in the book. And the first one is Gunk enters this contest at the beginning of Crush, and it's a battle of the bands, and they lose the contest. Of course, in real life, when we were 17, we entered Garage Wars, and we won the contest. And it's really what kicked off our career. I want to ask you a question. This section, I want to ask you what you remember about the moment that happened, because this was in spring of our senior year of high school, and over the next couple months, we were approached by major labels. We started doing press. That contest. Did you go home that night and get in bed with Bruce and go, what the hell just happened? Were you what was your headspace at that time?
Well, I think it was what led up to it is that you performed 3 or 4 times before you won the contest, and each time you moved on to the next round. And I mean, it was pretty amazing to watch. And you guys were incredible on stage, and your ability to kind of capture the audience was amazing. And
were you nervous? Did we seem out of our depth? Were you
No, actually I didn't. I really had a lot of faith in you guys. I thought you were really talented. And
what if we lost? In the book we lose.
You would have been more resilient than you are now.
Do you think the thing that Sarah and I were experimenting when we were rewriting history, we have the girls lose. I think part of what we were getting at was could our trajectory have been completely different? What if we had lost? Would we have not taken ourselves as seriously? We instantly were we need to do this. This is going to be our career. We're going to take a year off high school. I mean, it literally sent us on the path that sent us here. If we had lost, do you think it's possible that you would have said, yeah, you guys are great, and I love you, and it was so wonderful seeing you there, but go to university, do music as a hobby kind of thing? Can you imagine it talked us out of the life that we ended up having?
I don't think it was easy to talk you guys out of anything.
Right.
And I say that with all seriousness. You had a pretty strong sense of self.
Well, you queued this up perfectly. Here we go.
It's springtime in high schools in Calgary, and thoughts are starting to turn toward final exams, graduation, and summer jobs. But for 17-year-old twins, Sara and Tegan Quint, their thoughts are starting to turn toward a career in music. This is where it all began 2.5 years ago, writing songs and learning how to play guitar. And it might have stayed here if the twins hadn't entered Garage Wars, an annual fight to the finish between rockers and punk bands.
We're 2 little 17-year-old kids sitting up there and saying what we want to say, and we don't have nothing to hide behind. And maybe that's what the difference is that, the music industry, getting up on stage, going in front of people you don't know, saying things that you wrote down to yourself, that's very, very, very intimidating.
They earned higher marks than any band in the 7 years of Garage Wars. It's something they find a little overwhelming, but very exciting.
You couldn't have talked us out of it, but who what the hell is going on?
No. No, I don't think so. I mean, really, to be honest, I have a lot of brain damage from the 70s. So it's possible that I just don't remember correctly, but honest to God, you guys, you were so fierce. Like, you were such fierce people who really wanted, I knew you were going to do something. I mean, we spent 2 years of high school arguing about the fact that you weren't going to university. I don't know what you thought you were going to do if you weren't going to go to school. So when this popped in, it was like, praise be, like, thank God there's something that they're going to do.
Right.
Like, it really was inspiring. It was fun. It was exciting. You were excited. It changed the dynamic for a while between the two of you, where it felt like we were all on the same team. Yeah, it was really exciting. If you wouldn't have won, I mean, I think you probably
Would have built up something.
you would have worked at Robin's Donuts. I mean,
Nice. The good news is that, and I don't think it was necessarily our choice to make fictionalize Tegan and Sara lose. I actually think it was a suggestion from, maybe not specifically lose the contest, but the publisher really wanted us to, put some conflict into the book that might, be different than what we went through. And I found it really satisfying to make us lose. And only because I think for a long time, I've also wondered about how many things had to sort of fall into place for us to have the career that we did. And so it's really exciting to think about, well, what if the circumstances had been different? Like, what if we hadn't ended up winning that contest or meeting, Neil Young and his manager and going out in the world the way that we did? Like, could we have had a different career, and what would that look like? And I think that thread is through the whole book, where, we didn't have mentors, we didn't have other queer musicians who we could connect with. So in these books, we make one up, because what would that have been like? What would it have been like to be, to sort of be entering the music industry and have someone we admire, someone who was already a few steps ahead of us, say, hey, I have some advice to give you, and I'm gonna watch out for you. And, I think even going back to the beginning of this conversation, talking about the way that you guys were really, in real life, so supportive, while also being really, careful about not sending us down this path towards fame without thinking about it and taking some time to consider our options. In the book, I know Tegan said aspirational, but I think it's more than aspirational. It's sort of, I hope maybe this version of the story is applicable to other people's lives, not just people who want to be musicians, but to show that even when you're really good at something, you don't always win, and to show that even if you are really good at something and you don't win, there are still paths for you, and that your parents can still be proud of you, and it's okay if sometimes it feels exciting to think about your future, and sometimes it's just fun to hang out with your best friend who you also have a crush on and do homework. Because I remember really feeling that way many times at the beginning of our career, starting in high school and into our early 20s, where I would be like, oh, objectively, we just got this huge opportunity going on tour with Neil Young, or I remember we were gonna go to play David Letterman and go to Japan. I was 19, 20 years old. All I wanted to do was hang out with my girlfriend. That's all I wanted to do. When my manager would call me and he would be like, we've got a really exciting opportunity, I would just be like, oh no, I have to say goodbye to Belle. Seriously, I would weep, I did not want to be separated from her. And I think, this idea of that we have these opportunities, or that we're supposed to just feel one way about something if it seems cool and exciting. I really love that we were able to take all of that and kind of reshape it in a sort of it's not exactly how it happened, but what if it had happened this way? That's really exciting. It's an exploratory, healing thing.
I actually, in thinking about what you just said, and then thinking about, reflecting about what your question was to me, I actually think you would have continued, and the reason being is that even before you won the final contest, everybody was enthralled, and Mike Bell and Greg and all those guys from the university.
Right, we didn't have to win the contest, we'd already introduced ourselves to the community.
You were introducing yourself to the industry that lived and breathed in Calgary, and at the end of the shows, you were getting business cards. Like, people were really interested in you, separate from winning a contest. So I think it would have happened. But one of the things that comes up for me is it's really easy to ride the wave. Like, I remember after that, I can remember going to work the next morning and calling Mike Bell, because I had those cards, and Mike Bell was a writer, reviewer with the Calgary Sun, and he had been one of the judges, and he had given me his card and said, if you have any questions, this must be pretty overwhelming, give me a call. And I called him that morning and I was like, what happened? Like, what's happening? There's people that gave me cards, like lawyers and like managers, and what do I do? And he said, well, here are my thoughts. And I was like, are they good? Like, I was like, are you sure they're good? Like, I don't know. And he was like, yeah, they're good. Like, they're really good. And I'm really a cynic, and I think they're really good. So there was this like feeling about it that would have, I think, carried you through, even if you wouldn't have won. And let's be real, winning a Garage Wars against a bunch of bar bands, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't, they weren't going to go where you were going. You were going whether you won or not.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
This leads me to sort of this next theme, which is like in the book, then young Tegan and Sara have to go and do a photo shoot. This was a big thing we wanted to put in because that started happening to us. We were still in high school when a lot of this press came out, and it was like, my recollection of it was both very exciting and also extremely overwhelming.
Can I read you what I wrote about it?
Yeah.
I said, from the outside, photo shoots were such a hard thing for you guys to do. I remember taking you to a place on 17th Avenue to get those photos.
Yeah.
Right there. I can only imagine what it must have felt like to have all those eyes on you. You were both so self-conscious, as most teens are. I remember when other people got involved, there was this push to change your image, and you guys just railed against it.
We shake our heads.
How were you able to maintain your sense of self with all the pressure you were getting to be forced to embrace this kind of typical way that they wanted to dress you up and make you look, especially at a time, because Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, that was what was happening at that time. How did you resist not changing who they were?
Well, I think we understood on a cellular level we were never going to be those things, so I think probably on some level it was just...
But it was just like, even photo shoots, they brought you clothes. And
No, for sure. Well, this is where we're sort of trying to bridge this back to what we write about in Crush, is that absolutely the first experiences we had, and it continues to this day, is that you show up at a photo shoot and they definitely try to push you outside your comfort zone, which honestly can sometimes look really good. If you just show up in your sloppy clothes that you wear every single day, you don't look as good as if you put something on that's completely different. So, but we didn't have any of the language, we didn't have any of the confidence to say any of those things. And so I think what happened is we would show up to these shoots and we would joke around. We were very sarcastic and we would tease people a lot. And I think that was our way of sort of protecting ourselves. And we were very lucky because we had each other. And I think that's why in Crush we showcase like that. We're uncomfortable in those moments because at the time, it's something we've grappled with our whole career. It's like you're getting this amazing opportunity, but it doesn't feel good. But you don't want to complain about it because you don't want people to say you seem ungrateful. We're seeing this live out right now with Chapel Road, I think is an example of this right now, right? You have a stratospheric success that most people who are in that industry think they would give up anything to have, but you haven't had it. None of us have experienced that. That's a small percentage of the population, like a tiny, minuscule amount of human beings will ever be that famous. It's incredibly uncomfortable and unnatural thing to have millions and millions and millions of people know who you are at the exact same moment. And there's so much criticism and so many opinions. That's our culture, right? We just go online and we tell everybody what we think and what we feel, even when we don't know anything about the topic, and we do it publicly. And when we were writing Crush, we had to figure that out because that's what a young artist would be going through. And we were lucky, we didn't have social media, so we weren't seeing that flood of comments and criticism, but our first fan mail, as you probably remember, were adult men showing up at our coffee shop gigs when we were 17 and 18 years old with explicit instructions on how we could be better. And then when we got an email address, you know, and had a website, it was, you know, a variety of things that we would get, ranging from nude photos to criticism to adoration and love. And we had to sift through that with a 17-year-old or 18-year-old brain and try to figure all that out. And so when we were writing Crush, we were like, how would, you know, a young Tegan and Sara now deal with that? And that's again where I think the parents really play such an integral role in the books, because, you know, you constantly show up in the book saying, it's moving too quickly, it's going too fast, you need to trust yourselves, wear what you're comfortable with. Because I think that at the time we didn't have any of that language. It's not to say no one was reassuring us, I just think we were all a little like,
But
confident.
but I did feel that way. I
Yeah.
remember being mad at you. You guys actually took a call from a lawyer and went to a meeting with a lawyer and didn't tell me. And I remember just being furious at the lawyer, calling the lawyer and just reaming him out and saying, what are you doing, calling my teenage daughters into your office and speaking to them while they are underage without a parent present. And this lawyer was, you know, backed up against the wall, but ultimately it really was about having to pull it back, because it's easy to get going on it and not know. I mean, none of us knew what we were doing, so for me...
we didn't have anything to compare to.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leads me to
The
the first, which is,
Do you want me to tell you what I remember about the first?
yeah.
Okay.
So in Crush, Tegan and Sara have to shoot a music video. So we are going to talk now about our actual first music video.
Yeah. So I remember the first time I heard the first. I just want to remind you guys of this. I think you were playing Canada Day. It was 1998, and we went downtown to the stage where you were going to play. And I believe one of you had a severe hangover and was dry heaving into a garbage can.
Tegan.
Me?
It was Tegan.
I was just checking to see. That was the first time I heard the first.
Amazing setup, Mom. Okay. This is thankfully we're only going to listen to 30 seconds of my rapping.
Stand up, sit down, baby. Gonna be a formal dress down, hey day. We decide we'll not go downtown. How about you and me, we go get wasted. Why don't we get wasted? Hey, let's get wasted. My definition from grade school, understood it, we quietly become strong so early. They can't believe it. They can't believe it. They come from kindergarten to killing sprees. They come from heartache to inner peace. All of the feel is 100% see. He said, let's leave this between you and me. My cat was enough to leave my house between you and me. The cat bird was like, what did you say? What did you tell me, baby? How's it feel?
That song was an anthem.
Okay, I want to say the big story about this. Okay, I want to say a couple things about this. Some of my favorite things about this. I couldn't even watch that music video until like 2 months ago. It was like, too hard for me, but we figured out last night that the clothes we're wearing in the music video we got from playing the YTV Achievement Awards when we were 17. They gave them to us. That was the first time we were ever given clothes, and clearly we loved them so much we wore them in our first music video. The second thing that struck me, and I thought about this actually last night after our event, was, you know, we were a band that was stamped with this, like, they're teen girls, like, ripping, you know, poems out of their diaries kind of thing. Like, we were sort of cast off as being silly. Like, you know, we're just writing songs about our emotions and girls. Like, that song was about, was about Columbine and about walking in on a burglar, and it was a teenager, and like, you know, I had to call the police, and it was like so terrifying. Like, I also just think it's such an interesting time now, again, not to belabor how amazing the youth of today are, but I just love, it's the only positive about social media for me, but I just love that people can say now what things are about and how they feel. Like, we were so marginalized at the beginning of our career because everybody else had the mic, you know? We were just the band that was begging for attention. And I just, like, I see that video and I think, like, we thought this was, like, such a big deal. Like, we thought, oh my God, we made a music video, we're gonna be famous now. And it probably got played on Much Music, like, one time at, like, 9 o'clock at night or something, and then never again.
I did see it.
Yeah, like, I'm sure it got played a few times, but we thought we did it. We made a music video, now we're gonna be famous, and our career's just gonna roll out like a red carpet, you know? And it wasn't like that at all, and there was just so many years of having to convince people we were legit, I don't know, just like figure out who we were. We were doing it all sort of in the public eye, but when I see that video, I just see like these two kids who thought like, we're making a music video, like we're gonna be famous, like this is huge, and then it just came out and it was just like, ooh, you know. Well, going back to your previous question, when you asked if how do we sort of hold on to our identity, I actually think we didn't hold on to our identity, and that's what's so painful about looking back on the early part of our career. And I don't think that is dissimilar to what most people feel when they look back on their their adolescence, probably into their early adulthood. We were doing exactly what everyone else was doing. We were trying out different clothes, we were listening to different music. You know, we circulated through new social circles really quickly. We made friends really easily after high school, and some of those people, you know, they came and went within a month or two. I mean, we really were trying to figure out who we were, like in warp speed, and then we were also documenting it, you know, like in this really unusual way that most people don't have to do. Well, I guess it's more common now. We all film ourselves a lot more, but you know, those clothes are not our clothes. Those are clothes that someone gave us, and then 2 weeks later, it's like, oh, you have to shoot a music video. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'll definitely wear this weird shirt that looks like it was torn apart by a wolverine and is really tight, you know? And it's like, I don't know, we really were just figuring it out. And I think that's why there was a sort of sense of dislocation in trying to figure out what our identity was, why some people saw us as these dumb girls writing songs about our boyfriends, and some people, gay people, looked at us and said, those are gay people, and they are figuring out their hair, and why are they wearing Birkenstocks? Now they're not wearing Birkenstocks, they're wearing Doc boots. Now they're, you know, like I just think like gay people saw us because we were doing the same things that they were doing, and so that's why it's painful. That's why it's uncomfortable to look at that stuff, because we were doing it without a stylist or without guidance. We were doing it without proper media training, and it was what was also incredibly compelling. And you know, it's embarrassing too, but it's compelling. And I think, you know, it's obviously this version of it is not in the book, but it was really interesting to... No, but it is embarrassing in the book because of the book.
Well, I was gonna say about the music, like that, you know, Tegan wrote that song as a reaction to all the things that were happening to us. You know, we were writing in real time, and so are these kids, you know, so are the Tegan and Sara in the book who lose the contest, or who are navigating romantic relationships, or relationships that they want to be romantic. They are trying to figure out what it means to have a social media account and have people talk about their clothes or think their songs are dumb or whatever. And, you know, I think one of the sort of equalizers of this time that makes it easier to write a book like this and hopefully have it relate to people is that what was happening to us in 1998 was really unusual. It was hard to explain it to other people. But because of social media and the internet, to some degree we've all experienced that sense of euphoria when one of our posts goes viral, or a bunch of people really like what we put up online, or you know, maybe we made something or did something and it was really exciting and everybody really liked it. And I think that this sort of time and this like complex thing that we're trying to figure out around, is social media good, is it bad, how much is good, how much is bad, why do I feel good and then feel really bad? Like all of that, we've been dealing with that since really 25 years, like since our career started. And I really empathize with what's happening in social media and sort of like this debate around modernity, because I'm just like, yeah, it's so hard. It's like this, we're like, you know, we're just sort of all trying to figure out who we are, and we're doing it in front of a camera, and we're waiting for people to validate us in this really potentially toxic and complicated way. And it's sort of, this sounds bad because it makes it seem like I'm happy you're going through it now too, but like, we've been going through it not feeling like everybody understood it. And now I kind of actually, for the first time in a long time, really feel like, wow, people really know, especially kids. Like when I talk to my friends about their kids and the way that they're navigating social media, it feels a lot like the conversations we're having about how do you be an artist online and open yourself up to criticism. It's kind of the same conversation about, oh gosh, I'm really nervous for my kid to get a social media account, and what if they're bullied, or what if, whatever, you know, like all the conversations we're having. those are also the conversations we're still having as adults about our career and about art. And it's just interesting how it's sort of become full circle now.
It's interesting. I think that the comment I made about your sense of identity was there present in that music video. There was a cheekiness to you guys.
Tegan is the same person outside. When she's in that interview, I'm like,
It's that your sense of self was there, and I
Yeah.
think that's what I meant when I asked the question. Is that how did you maintain that, keep that part of
clearly
you?
I thought I was changing it. That's what I've been doing in all this therapy. But it's like, then I look at the videos and I'm like, well, that was a huge waste. I am identical to the way that I was when I was 17. So I was right. One time I did say in couples therapy, I said, people don't change. And I had an argument with the therapist, and I just should have shown her some of this archival footage. You tell me. We are just a heads up that we're heading into our final section here where we're going to talk about crushes. Thank you everybody for letting us have this incredibly cerebral debate about social media, even though we're at a book event for a middle grade graphic novel. Welcome to the Tegan and Sara universe.
Those are the kids that are dealing with all of that.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's having a great time.
So we are going to talk about crushes, and boy oh boy did you guys ever have some crushes. I think the crushes that you have on girls were unusually significant and intense in middle school and high school. I wonder if being queer and hiding such a significant part of yourself and then wrapping it all with secrecy served to intensify the experience of your crushes.
Oh my god, 100%. And if we could have relationships in secret now, I would totally do it. Like, I'm going back to
It'll
the
be
closet.
so tough
so-
dates. So should we just pretend like we're not together? Like, it would be way better.
I think this is one of those things that's really complicated, and it's important to note that I think boundaries and having rules and boundaries around relationships when you're a kid are really important, and in adolescence are there. It's super, super important. I wouldn't change anything about the way that my adolescence happened because I got to have this wonderful best friend who was also, she was my absolute best friend. She would endure, we would write pages and pages and pages throughout the week, and then we would put them into duotangs like these, and we would give them to each other. Like, we were so fascinated by each other, and we were so curious, and we talked about the world and our families and music, and it was really, really beautiful. And when that evolved into, we were dating, if you had known about it, there would have been boundaries and there would have been rules, and we probably wouldn't have been allowed to have sleepovers. And so I'm glad it was the 90s. Sorry, it sucks to be a kid now. I loved it. I loved having my best friend with me all the time. And one thing I will say, one really important note, we had a very healthy, reciprocal relationship. She still is a wonderful person. She's still my very best friend in the world, and I love her so much. And it was just such an important relationship, and I think it is so unusual to have such an important relationship like that at that age. But it is a huge part of why I continue to have wonderful friendships and found a wonderful woman to marry. I mean, I really think that that relationship taught me to both love and be loved in a really amazing way.
Well, I appreciate that. You're thankful that I hosted your hookups.
I don't even think of it like that. It feels like it's like we were, I would never use the H word to describe what we're talking about.
I want to say that, I chose to include my best friend from high school, who was my first actual girlfriend, but my first crush, that I remember was way younger. I was really young. I was Sarah and I both, had crushes on our girlfriends when we were really, really young, 5 or 6.
Like Christina.
Yeah, really young. But the first real crush that I remember that wasn't a friend was a woman that you worked with. She worked at the summer camp. Yes, I was the one who took this conversation into adulthood. Oh, no, whatever, just relax. Everyone relax. I'm going to say it here, but you'll get it from the description of it. Okay. But you ran a summer day camp, and because you ran it, we had to go to it. It was an inner city day camp, and one of the women who worked there and who kind of was just under you, like, everyone was in love with her. All of us kids were in love with her. Like, we'd fake injuries because then we got to go see her. And when I'm fairly certain we were going to that camp when we were like 7, 8, 9, I think those summers. And one of those summers I became like so infatuated with her. I had like this, I still do it to this day, I like to fall asleep. I like imagine. I call it fantasy world. It's just, sometimes it's just picturing a really amazing house, and I just like walk on the floor with my hand. Like, I don't know, like it's just whatever, a great meal or something. I just like, I get into the minutiae of the detail, and that's how I fall asleep. It's just like I replay it night after night after night, getting even more detail each time, and fall asleep, sooner and sooner. Anyway, I started this when I was a little kid, and my first memory of starting this was with this woman, and I used to imagine that she would kidnap me. She'd kidnap me, and she would take me to her house, and she would talk to me. She would just talk to me, like, she would just ask me questions, and I would just tell her all the things I thought about. And all the things, like the deepest fantasy was just to have an older woman listen to me. She would be so pleased about that. I know, I should really tell her. Anyway, that was my first crush. Like, that was how my crush feelings came out, was attention. Like, I was like, that's how I knew as I started to get older and when I looked back that I liked women more than men. Because I was like, I had boyfriends, I liked boys. Like, I really was genuinely interested in boys in a way, but when I look back, it's like I was always so desperate for women's attention and like affection and like, so I want to show your crush though before we get into the final Q&A. Will you tell us a little bit about this fine young gentleman?
Brian and I grew up together. He grew up in the town that I was from in southern Saskatchewan, and he became a pretty famous hockey player with the New York Islanders.
And during the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, and then managed the Pittsburgh Penguins. But yeah, Brian was a very, very good hockey player, and they sent him away to the bigger city away from where we lived. And I was in boarding school, and he went away to school so he could do hockey while going to school.
Did you like pine for him?
I did. I had a really big crush on him, and then he asked me out, and we started dating when I was in grade 9, and he came to my grade 9 graduation.
Was he older than you?
He was 2 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I found him incredibly boring, to be honest. Once we started to have the relationship, because all he talked about was hockey. It was like the only thing that he actually really wanted to do.
And you didn't want to be a hockey wife?
I was not going to be a hockey wife, no. But he was a lovely guy, and yeah, he was definitely my first crush and probably real first boyfriend.
Okay, we'll stop there. We'll finish just to say that there are a lot of crushes in this book, and Sarah said it last night, but it's not just romantic crushes, friend crushes were super important, and I think that's one of my favorite things about junior high and high school is how centered the friends are, because friendship is so huge. So we're going to do some Q&A now. We're going to say thank you so much. There were so many questions that came in. We've only picked a few because we only have about 12 minutes. So, but I want to tell everybody that we are going to answer all the questions that we got on our Substack. So if you're not subscribed to our Substack, it'll be a free post that we'll do where we answer everyone's questions. So thank you so much for all the lovely questions. But
All right.
I'll throw it to you, Mom.
So in the book, Sarah hates playing This Is Everything. Does she actually dislike that song, or was that fabricated for the book?
I definitely do not hate that song. There are songs that I hate.
What?
That's not the question. I had to create some tension, and I do think that that conflict happens
in our band all the time, and it started as soon as we started writing songs. You'd play a song, and sometimes it was Tegan, sometimes it was my mom, sometimes it was my friends. It was like, play that song that you played last weekend, and it would be like, oh, I'm over that song. I wrote like 9 songs this week, and I don't only want to play these new 9 songs. And I can remember already people would get so attached to the songs that they would be so devastated that we didn't want to play them anymore. And it's so interesting to me because in the beginning when you just start just playing music for people, it's also, so many people love when people want to request their songs. They'll play the same song over and over again, but that was something that we always were, never did. We wanted to always be on to the next. So it's interesting that now we're trapped in a career where we just have to play Living Room every single time. Oh God. So she doesn't like Living Room.
Was the choice to make Sara vegan in the book based on a real life past experience?
I want to say something that I really do hope everybody here buys the book or gets the book. I think there's so many funny adult jokes in this book. I get it, it's aimed at a younger audience, and we've met so many amazing kids, like sort of between the ages of 7 and 12 who've really fallen in love with the book. And I'm not saying that I don't think they get some of the jokes, but there are some jokes in the book and some storylines that I really feel like were there for the adults.
I was never vegan, but I was using that as an example of when you, whether it's romantic or not, like when you meet someone new and they care about something that you've never cared about or thought about, or they listen to something that you've never listened to, and then you want to become like an aficionado or whatever. Like, I just use the example of becoming a vegan because my crush in the book is a vegan, and so I want to. The irony, and Stacey, I can feel you thinking this right now. When I started dating Stacey, she was a vegetarian, and one of our first dates, I ordered some kind of buffalo or something, and she was like, interesting choice. So that's a real fiction.
What was it like working with Tillie Walden, and did you get to see different stages of her drawing process as the series was being drawn?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, Tillie did give us a few samples of the different characters to make sure that we thought they looked enough like us, but also, different enough and, reflected what we felt were the characters' descriptions. And then we would see a rough line, almost like a line drawing version, and then we saw a third version, which was almost what the book is, and then they would, we would go through and make changes. We have amazing editors at FSG Kids. It was Wes and Melissa, and then Hannah joined the team, and all 3 are incredible, gave unbelievable notes, and Tillie is so fast and incredible. And so, yeah, I guess by the end, I guess we'd seen sort of 4 different sets of things, but we gave very, very few notes. Like, we were both just like, so deferential because she's just so amazing. So, but working with Tillie was incredible. We're doing 2 book events with her in Brooklyn. She had a kid, how old is he now? One. Sorry, when you have children, you're like, they're little until they're talking, and then they're talking until they're a teenager. It's like, but yeah, so she's amazing and so sweet, and like, she's kind of like if I had like an alter ego and like had another life or path. Like she like teaches art at a college and like lives in like a small community town or whatever. Like it's all very like Dead Poet Society. I'm like,
do you want her to kidnap you and take you?
No. There's not like that's not the energy. It's like I want to like it's like Body Snatchers. Like I want to like take over her body and live her life. Yeah.
In your first book, did you really get your period in the bowling bathroom?
I wish. No, my recollection is
Why
that
did they do that?
Why did
Like, why did we set that in the bowling alley?
I think I was just trying to write a more interesting story than what was real, which is that my memory is that we were actually just going to a sleepover. It was just one of those weekends where we were gonna go to, I think it was like Marlowe's house or something, and I got my period, and I was too afraid to tell anybody, and I remember it being the worst sleepover because the whole time I was like, I can't even say what it was about. It's an adult conversation, but
she ordered bison, and she was on a date with a vegetarian.
that was terrible. It was the bowling story again is just like if it could have only happened this way kind of moment instead of what it was, which was that I went to this
a sleepover that felt like 700 hours, not 24 hours, where I was just like, what do I do? Like, it was horrible. It was a horrible thing. And you know what I don't think this has anything to do with being gay, but it does speak to the discomfort I had with my body at that age, because it wasn't like I was the first. I had been around many other people in my grade who were like, I got my period, oh, we all have our periods. Like, it was like I had been privy to many conversations about people beginning this very normal, natural thing that happens at that exact age. So why it was so destabilizing, confusing, and embarrassing to me, it was just one of those things where I was like, I thought maybe if I just didn't acknowledge it, it would go away. And it would just stop, because I just was that. I just remember, and I know that this is such a common, I used to think it was uncommon, but I know that it is very common when people are very prepared. It's almost like I 100% knew it was going to happen. I was not surprised in any way, and I was utterly surprised. And that has set the tone for menstruation for the last 29 years. I still am shocked, confused, destabilized each time it arrives. I think, are you serious? I can't believe
Well, good news, you're getting to the age where it's
almost over. Believe me, every time I'm like, this has got to be the last. If I were to give a sound effect to it, it definitely sounds like, it's like creaking, it's getting all sounding. Hey, mine, by the way, I got, and then had to go to karate lessons. Like, I'm sorry, have we not seen millions and millions of storylines of young people who get their period and they're like, their mom like sits them down, they have a party where they say, oh, we'll put a heating pad on you, you can lay in bed, and like, welcome. No, mom's like, get your gi on, get your white gi on, and head off to get the shit kicked out of you by a bunch of boys in the local community center for 2 hours on your first day of your period.
And now you guys know why they have been so successful.
We can handle anything.
They just pulled themselves through it all. Anyway, guys.
Okay, hold on. Okay, this is our wrap up. I want to say again a huge round of thanks. A huge thanks and a huge round of applause for our mom Sonia for doing it. A huge round of applause to all of you for coming out, because books shaped Sara and I's youth. They still to this day are a source of both joy and comfort and escape, and we both are collectors of books, and it's been an absolute it blows our minds that we get to do this, and there's such an amazing book community here in Vancouver, and so I just want to say thank you to everybody who put together this event, who have supported us, embraced us in the community, and all of you for coming and reading and getting young people to read. It's such a meaningful thing, and as my mom said earlier, there was just so little representation when we were younger, when we were looking for ourselves, and so I do hope if you know somebody that would benefit from having this book that you'll pick it up tonight. Thank you so much for coming out and supporting us in all of the weird things that we do and all our side projects. It really means the world to us. As my mom pointed out, we really weren't going anywhere else, so this music was our vehicle, and now books, and we just take a lot of pleasure out of doing it. So thank you again so much, and we'll see you out and about in Vancouver.